Are you ready to overcome addictive behaviors? Today, I'm interviewing Anthony of Inclusive Yoga. He has a YouTube channel where he offers chair yoga, and I'm going to ask him some questions on healing from addiction through yoga. And my name's Mandi Gardner, and I'm a trauma informed yoga teacher as well as a DBT skills coach. Can you share a little about your background and personal journey and what brought you here?
Yeah, absolutely. I got in a car accident when I was 23 years old, and it was right out front of my house, but I got a pretty bad back injury from it. And it was all of my thoracic spine, the middle back, was all herniated or bulging discs. So I was in a lot of pain all the time. I started the treatment. I did chiropractic and physical therapy, but I was only 23 at the time. They didn't want to operate at the time. So they just treated me with pain medication. I was on pain medication from the doctor for over a year, and then I gradually became addicted through that. I started getting harder and harder drugs. I needed more and more. By the time I realized what was going on, I was already having withdrawal symptoms. By that time, I was just taking opiates to maintain and feel normal, to avoid the symptoms, avoid the pain.
Thank you for
Mm.
sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So, at what point did you realize that you really needed to make a change? What was the turning point that led you to start seeking healing?
So I tried to quit on my own many times by getting like Suboxone and things like that, the drugs that they would give you in rehabilitation. And I couldn't, I tried to do it a few times, but it didn't work for me. I was just in so much pain all the time. It got to a point where I was just thinking about killing myself at one point because it
Mm.
was too much. It was too painful. I didn't know how to get out of that. I didn't see any other options. Luckily, someone helped me and got me into a rehab center. From there, wonderful because I didn't see the possibility, and then I had the possibility. When I was in rehab, they showed us a movie called The Secret, which I think probably everybody's seen now. They
Yeah.
showed us that, and that's stimulated that first shift in my mind. It never occurred to me before that I could actually choose my thoughts or have any control over that.
So, tell us what initially drew you to yoga as part of this recovery journey that you went through.
Yes, as I think I mentioned before, consider that yoga. That's just the physical part. The physical part of yoga came 2 years after I was out of rehab. I was 360 pounds. I gained a lot of weight, couldn't exercise, and I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to lose weight, but I didn't know how. That's how I got into the physical aspects of yoga. But yoga was part of my recovery as through the secret. That first mental shift got me on the path of self-inquiry. I started looking at a lot of things about the mind, thoughts, emotions, and how all of that is related. And I would say that's how yoga first helped with the recovery for sure.
Oh, that's great. The eight limbs of yoga, right? There's all these different aspects to it, more than just the movements, really focusing on that shift in the mind and taking ownership of our internal landscape. I think that's one of the beautiful things that yoga teaches us. So, thank you for sharing that. Did you immediately connect to yoga, or was it something that you had to did it work up slowly?
The funny thing is, meditation and the breathing practices, also the postures, but those two in particular are what really resonate with me now. But at first, I remember the way I got into it was my mother actually gave me a book. It's called Moving Towards Balance by Rodney Yee. It's like a 6-week program. It's a wonderful book for practicing at home, starting a home practice. And it's a great beginner introductory if you do want to check it out. The thing that I remember about it is it sat on my dresser for 2 years. It just sat there because my image of yoga at first, the pictures I used to see were those really old pictures of there's people Iyengar and all of these originators of yoga postures, and they're wearing like white diapers. That was my image, men in diapers. And so I was completely uninterested. Like when I don't want to look like that was my other thought because they were very skinny and lean. And that was just my image of it, my honest mental image at the time.
Sure.
And so I started looking at the book. I opened the book up and I started practicing every day. I don't know what it was. I never missed a day. I only practiced for 20 minutes at first. And I just hold a couple postures that I could hold, like downward dog a little bit. and literally 15, 20 minutes. That's all what I could do
Yeah.
every day. Something started
Yeah.
to shift. In the beginning, I remember I would skip, it was 2 minutes of breathing and 2 minutes of meditation, and I would skip, because I wasn't interested in that at all. But I did the physical, and something about the really long, slow breathing, he does emphasize that. Combination of that and keeping a steady gaze focused on one point, and that ujjayi breath, that soft sound in your throat, like really like just something started to change. That changed something gradually over time.
I love to hear how it transforms other people because I sure know it has impacted me in such a positive way.
That's wonderful.
So, in what ways did yoga help you heal emotionally? I know that you've talked about the physical aspect, just starting with 10 or 15 minutes. And I think that's so perfect because that's reality. Like in the beginning, like it's really hard to instill those daily habits and being able to have a really realistic goal. It's so important for the success, right? When shifting gears, looking at yoga helps us with both physical and emotional, but looking at the emotional part, with me having a trauma background and having emotional dysregulation or getting triggered be something that I struggle with, the audience members that are listening, more than likely a very common thing. So, what's been your experience with emotions and healing from addiction and yoga? How did yoga help you identify them or integrate them into your life?
I came to realize that emotional wellness was a very important part of yoga. When I look back, it seems like it became very intellectual at some point, where it's very
Mm-hmm.
focused on factual knowledge. And there's not really much when you read about in yoga about emotions, except more recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think it's like the deeper level of healing. I really feel in myself like emotional wellness is the basis of that needs to be healed essentially. Definitely the root of addiction for sure, mine anyway. I could speak for myself, but for sure the root of mine because the impulsive behavior comes from that
Right.
energy that's not healed. For myself, it took me a while to get into that part. I can only speak from a guy's perspective. For me, it's a little more not showing your emotions, not crying in front of people and all of that. That took me a little while to allow myself to do. I even noticed so much discomfort doing it just alone. You could be in a room with no windows or anything and
Mm.
still resistance to that. That opened for me when I was in my 300-hour training in India. I had this 2-day release where I was crying for 2 days and let go. And I think for me, there was that initial buildup, like a volcano, so much suppressed that it feels extreme at first. But once that buildup gets up, then it's like settles a little bit. And it's just, it's soft, easy, much gentler. I think.
Nah. Do you feel like the yoga helped you to facilitate that?
Absolutely. It was the last 2 days of my 300-hour teacher trainings. We were there for 30 days in a row, practicing 6 hours a day. So a full Ashtanga practice and then a Hatha yoga practice
Yeah.
meditation every day. I think maybe all of that over 30 days, the last 2 days, it started to
Yeah.
come up, And
That's so
and
beautiful.
even to manage it, the breathing helps so much. Like even just deep breaths helps manage those emotions. It's not overwhelming to your body, your nervous system. You can handle it.
100%. Yeah, that's what the yoga has taught me, just to be able to breathe in discomfort. And when that impulse or compulsive behavior comes up, just being able to breathe through it and then also allowing yourself to distract yourself in that moment. Like it's okay to distract yourself to get out of that impulsive behavior, to switch gears, going for a walk and deep breathing or doing yoga. Yoga really is coming to your breath, taking a pause and trying to observe, okay, there's that impulse, there's that want, but I'm going to breathe through it. And then eventually it passes, and eventually we can move on without that sensation. Has that been a similar experience for you?
Absolutely. And like at first, I remember I had a lot of crutches when I got out of rehab. I smoked a lot, like 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I wanted to quit smoking. That was a big crutch to help suppress a lot of anger. When I stopped smoking, for example, that was really tough. It was like pure willpower I used to get through that, but I felt so much anger coming up. And I would use hitting the heavy bag. A still practice that helps tremendously is just like shifting perspective on it. To be honest, that helps a lot of people I notice is shifting your perspective that our emotion, what we call our emotions are feelings, right? They're sensations. We call them feelings because we feel them, like sensation in the body. So instead of looking at it like something uncomfortable, we have that impulsive reaction to, I don't want to feel this thing. Like it's like a reaction to it. Then sitting with it and like curiously observing, like this, there's an uncomfortable sensation in my chest and breathing and just sitting with it and allowing yourself to experience it. That can be more intense at first if it's suppressed for a long time, of course, but
Mhm.
gradually sitting with it, it gets lighter and lighter to where it just feels like sensation eventually. Okay, there's an uncomfortable sensation. Or I feel angry. It's okay. Instead of trying to, I shouldn't feel angry or this is bad kind of thing.
Yes, that's so perfect. Thank you for that. What's the next question? So, looking at controlling triggers, if someone is about to get triggered or emotionally dysregulated, or if they're feeling the anger starting to bubble up, what's your go to technique to bring that down in the moment?
Anger, for me, the way I experience it is a very unique emotion in the sense that there's tons of energy behind anger. Like anger has a lot of energy in it. In contrast to something like shame or guilt, you feel more heavy, right? It's less energy. But anger is a very
Hmm.
energized one. So that I think is very helpful to get it out some way. Exercise, push-ups, something that really gets some energy out of your body. But besides that, the other thing is that what I like to ask myself a question is what helped me so much during that is I heard this first about food in reference to food because I also overate so much. And in reference to food, what am I avoiding feeling? What am I trying to avoid feeling? Like simple question, right? It's hard at first because of course you're going to have that impulsive energy that's habitual, very strong, and you're just going to go grab something, whatever it is, the ice cream or whatever. But trying to catch yourself in that process of catching, okay, that energy's coming up. I feel that. Oh, I need to do like this restless energy to get something to calm it, to get rid of it. Then when that's coming up, catching yourself in the act and just saying like, what am I avoiding feeling? And just sitting with it a little bit. If you have to do some physical activity, use that. But if not, if you can just sit with it and feel and breathe and just say okay, is it so bad what is it so horrible that I have to get rid of it? Or is it just sensation? Really trying to be aware of what you're actually feeling in that moment and see what it is, because that's where it allows it some space with that presence to come up and move. Inclusive Yoga with Anthony on YouTube is probably the best way to find everything that I do because I have everything on there.
Okay.
My
Okay.
website is Anthony Serpiello. It's probably on the bottom of the screen there, but
Yep.
Serpiello and .com. And it has everything on there. I'm also a musician, so it has my music on there.
You can find me, Mandi Gardner, at Holistic Evolution Shala.